everyone. This is Maureen Ryan Blake, and welcome to the Power of the Tribe. Up until this point, we have had some discussions about circumstances that may will have women lose their tribes, and also some of the problems of making a new tribe. We had some interesting discussions with Dr. Danny Sigley as well as Dr. Jill Stoddard. Today, I'm very excited that we're going into a new phase of the summit. I have Debbie Sade Lambert and Craig Lambert, and their book is The Mindful Couple, 52 Winning Strategies for Real Love and Connection. And today, they are going to give us some really excellent tips and advice for developing, continuing a really strong relationship. So I think that I'm so excited, and we'd like to welcome guys, Craig and Debbie. Nice to have you here.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks for having us.
Thank
We're
you,
very
Maureen.
excited to be here.
So a little bit, being the troopers that they are, they're in New York. They're usually in San Diego, but they knew they wanted to be here with us, and we just are so grateful. So, okay, so now you happen to be my only married couple working together on the summit, which I'm also excited about because I'm going to go into that a little bit. So your book, 52, and it comes out February, we're guessing, right? Just in time for Valentine's Day.
Correct. That's correct.
And what a great gift to give everyone for Valentine's Day. So again, The Mindful Couple, 52 Winning Strategies for Real Love and Connection. So with the book, and I'm going to do is the horse before the cart, or where was the book in the development of your relationship and being married and working together?
You want to take that, or you want me to?
You could take that.
Yeah. Okay. So, relationships have always been like right front and center for us, not just as our relationship, but as a study of relationship, of powerful relationships, of transformative relationships. It's always been like on top of our minds, what makes a powerful, intentional, transformational relationship? It's been a question we ask each other all the time. So we've made a study of it, and we've studied with some of the greatest relationship therapists in the world. And I say that humbly. We've reached out and we've learned from the greatest. Harville Hendrix. I mean, names maybe those who are in the world of relationships know. John Gottman, Sue Johnson. So we've made it our life journey, in a sense, to understand relationships. And the book is just, over the years, we've been doing couples therapy. I'm a relationship therapist. Debbie's a relationship coach. And over the years, we've been doing and seeing really thousands of couples. And from that, we have gleaned what we consider to be the most important components of a very healthy relationship. And so with that came the book, the 52, what we think is one tip every week that will keep your relationship healthy, and also gives you exercises with each tip to practice, because we're a firm believer in practicing. Because to have a great friendship, a great relationship, you need to practice, you need to create a habit. And so we're all about creating healthy habits for relationships. And that's how the book came about. And so from that, we've decided to really kind of filter through those and think about it more broadly for this audience in terms of women, in terms of tribes, in terms of creating healthy networks and healthy friendships. And we've kind of distilled what we think are some of the more, the tips that are more beneficial for that group. And we want to talk about them today.
And Maureen, we're really excited to be here because one of the things that we realize is that although our book is specifically for couples, one of the things that is so true of it is it's really, most of it, I would say probably 95%, is very appropriate for any relationship, whether it's a relationship with your kids, your friends, your relatives, anybody. We live in relationship. And so we went through the book and we picked out like 7 or 8 that we thought would be fun to talk about and really beneficial for women. I think your group is women entrepreneurs and working moms, and things that they would find useful, not only in their friendships, but perhaps even in their personal relationships,
Or in their businesses.
in their businesses.
Yeah.
You're in a relationship with your vendors and your customers. So a lot of it applies there as well.
I'm really glad you're here because as far as giving to my audience and the tools and just that we all can live by to make life a little better is what being part of a tribe is. So you guys are part of my tribe now. You would so we're
Oh,
clear.
good.
Happy to be part of
Yeah.
your tribe. I
Okay,
think
good. So I'm going to hand the reins over to you, and I'm going to sit back and let you guys do what obviously you do best. So take it away.
Okay. Well, the first tip, should I start or you want to start?
No, I'd like you to go ahead and start and I'll jump in.
Okay.
Okay.
The first tip that we want to talk about is holding space for each other. When we're in a relationship with anybody, and particularly our friends in this case, it's so important to be able to hold space for them. So often our friends, they come to us and they're upset about something. They want to share something. And as women entrepreneurs, we want to fix things. And so we listen with a problem-solving ear. What advice do they need? How can I help them? When really, oftentimes, what's really called for is a friendly ear, the ability and capacity to hold space that says, I see you, I care about you, and you matter. And what you're saying is important to me, and I want to listen. And so one of the first things that we're going to talk about is something that we call deep listening. And deep listening has 3 components to it. And Craig, you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'd like to jump into the 3 components, but also say a little bit about deep listening and why it's so challenging. You know, the idea of deep listening requires a sense of presence. And if you think about it, presence is sort of a spiritual term we've heard a lot, and in the mindful couple is a component of spirituality to it, which means I'm here now, I'm right here. The problem with being present often is that our minds are constantly, relentlessly spinning. Debbie was quoting a statistic to me, something about how fast the mind is working compared to how quickly we speak.
7 times
7
faster.
times faster the mind is working. So when somebody is talking with you, your mind is moving very, very quickly. And oftentimes, we're not really present. We're thinking about how we're going to respond. Our mind is forming opinions. We're forming judgments. We're maybe distracted with hunger or thirst, or maybe the noise in the room. So the idea of being fully present is itself a major challenge. And typically, to do that, we find it's a challenge. So how do we do it? So as Debbie was saying, we've come up with these 3 concepts of deep listening. And the first concept is mirroring, or reflecting back to the person what you hear them saying. It's that simple. The reason it's so powerful is because most often when a person is speaking, we're already thinking about how we're going to respond. So that prevents you from doing that. If you know you're going to repeat back to this person what you're saying, so what I hear you saying is, and then repeating it back, you're not at the same time able to think about how you're going to respond. You're just too busy thinking about what they're saying because you're going to be called upon to do that. So this is a very powerful technique, simply reflecting back what you hear the person saying. So while you're doing that, you're not going to be able to interpret what they're saying. You're not going to be able to form opinions, and you're going to allow them their perspective and give them the space, as Debbie was saying, give them the space to kind of review their thoughts, share their feelings with you, and you're just going to listen. So that's the first part, mirroring. You want to talk about the second part?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about mirroring. And as Craig said, it's so powerful because you have a chance. It creates that space. And so when I say, so what you're saying is, and then you say, did I get it all? Is there more? And it really fills the person's heart in a way that is palpable. And because it says to the person, you really do care. Because again, so many of us are terrible listeners. And so when we say, I get that, is there more? It touches us at the heart level, which is the foundation of what we want to do to be a good friend. So yeah, so that's mirroring. Simple technique, but something we can easily do. I mean, it's not hard to repeat back the essence of what somebody says, but we don't think about doing it. So that's it. Mirror back the essence of what they're saying and ask, is there more? And the second level of deep listening is validating. A lot of times people just need to be validated. And to validate just means to say basically what you don't have to agree with it, but just that what you're saying makes sense. And what makes sense is, and pick a part about what they're saying that does make sense, even if you disagree with what they're saying. And I would probably say, particularly if you disagree, because when we disagree, we want to come in and talk about how we disagree. But people want to be validated. And so validating allows you to connect. And when we connect, then they can listen to you when you want to speak. So it's mirroring, it's validating what you're saying makes sense. And what makes sense to me is this. And the third part of deep listening is something just called empathy. And empathy is really kind of getting in their skin and saying, you must be feeling very frustrated. Is that what you're feeling? The person says, yeah. Is there anything else that you're feeling? Yeah, I'm kind of angry too. You're angry. Yeah, I can imagine. That makes sense. Now I've connected. I've listened, I repeated it back, I validated, and I've empathized. And you don't have to do all of those all the time. When somebody really needs to be listened to and pour their heart out, those are 3 skills that come in really handy. And again, they're good at home with your husband.
And typically, the reality is, as Stephen Covey once said, we typically don't listen with the intent to understand. We listen with the intent to reply. So we're here sitting at our seats, listening to somebody speak, and we're really not listening. We're waiting so we can respond and tell you what I think. This changes that whole dynamic. And the whole purpose of listening is to truly understand what the person is trying to share with you without you feeling like you need to interrupt, which we so often do, or cut the person off in the middle of the sentence. You're just there, you're open, you're receiving. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's rarely seen. And when it happens, you can be sure, as Debbie says, the person's going to be moved because it's so rare. So I want to share that with the audience and let them know, practice these tools.
It's a practice thing.
Yeah, you have to work with it. Mirroring, validating, and empathizing.
So that's our first tip.
First tip.
Okay.
Second tip.
We're off to a really good start. I'm going to step with you. Making space.
Yes.
Isn't this then also for the person who's listening actually a relief that they can just be there and they don't need to be anything else?
100%. 100%. It is. It takes all the pressure off. But it's a new skill set. It's a new action for many, many people to let go of the reins of control of having to fix and problem solve, come up with all these ideas. But when we do, Maureen, to your point, it is a relief. It's very empowering to be able to sit and make space. It's a beautiful thing. What's beautiful about it is the reaction that you get. When we have people practice deep listening, we also have them observe the effect that has on the person that they're deep listening to. And it's a beautiful experience.
I have had people break down in tears over it. It's that powerful. And the other part to this, which I'll go back to the first thing I said, which is mindfulness, which is presence. When you're listening in this way, you're being fully present in the moment with that person. I like to think of this technique as meditation in conversation. And that's a very hard thing to do for those meditators out there who know how to sit and just be in a present moment with themselves and just be with your breath. That's one thing. To bring that kind of presence into a conversation, that's very, very challenging. And these techniques are helping you to do just that.
Yeah, I always say that the shift that one needs to make in life in general is from head to heart. And so often we live in this world in our head, and we need our head. It's not like we always should just be in our heart. But when we're in our head and we're infused with our heart, that's when the magic happens. So when I listen to you, I have to use my head to listen to you. But if I use my heart as the engine to what I'm listening to with my head, that's magical. So the journey is always from head to heart. And so often we just, to your point, Maureen, it's like, isn't it easier to sit back and make space? And it is because we're using just our heart. We're not in our head. We're just being present and allowing what to unfold, what needs to unfold to unfold.
And I just, as one last thing, if I could just say about the, is there more?
Yeah.
Don't you think it's worth
Is there more?
elaborating on that?
Is there more? Are you,
Yes,
are
there's
you,
more.
okay, go ahead. Yes, more.
Is there more? Debbie alluded to that question. How often, think about how often when you're with a friend or someone in your tribe, do you hear them say after you've paused, you know, we all pause when we're talking, before they jump in saying, is there more?
It catches people off guard. They're like, well, actually, there is. And you're like, darn, no, I'm teasing. Gotta go home. No, but people are caught off guard because they're so used to just being able to get their stuff in before somebody responds, right?
It says, I'm really here, I'm present,
And I
no
care.
rush, I care, I'm listening.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Okay, second one. Is there more? Can we move on?
Let's move on.
Okay. Okay, the second one that we're going to talk about is responding to bids. And this is a concept that came from, actually, deep listening really came from Harville Hendricks. It wasn't something that we discovered. We just call it deep listening. But the actual 3 parts of listening came from Harville Hendricks, who's a master teacher in the area of couples therapy.
He calls it intentional dialogue.
Yeah. So I never liked the word dialogue.
Mhm.
It sounded scary to me, so we reframed it, deep listening. Okay, second one actually comes from Gottman. It's called responding to bids. So what's a bid? And I love this one because it's something outside of our awareness in all of our relationships. A bid is any attempt to get your attention. So if I come home to Craig and I say, honey, how's your day? That's a bid. I want attention. I don't want him to say, I'm busy, go away, right? In friendships, we make bids all the time to one another. And the problem is that there are 3 ways to respond to a bid. One is turning against it. Friend, I say, Maureen, what you doing for dinner tonight? That's a bid. That's almost a request to go out for dinner, right? So I say, hey, Maureen, what are you doing for dinner tonight? And you say, I'm busy right now. I can't really talk to you. That's what we call turning against a bid. Not a good idea to maintain a healthy relationship. You take a hit in the relationship. We do it in our primary relationships often, but we don't want to do it more than we turn toward a bid. So what does turning toward a bid mean? Hey, Maureen, what are you doing for dinner tonight? You say, actually, I have dinner with my husband. We can't say yes to all bids, right? I have dinner with my husband, but you know what? I would love to get together for dinner with you. Are you free on Thursday night? Or I would love, let's plan something. Turning toward a bid. It's not saying yes to a possible request that was embedded, but it's turning toward a bid because it's saying, I know you want to connect and I want to connect too. I hear you. Let's make it happen. Make sense? So that's turning toward a bid. Turning against is just saying no. And then the other thing that we do with bids is we just miss them because sometimes they're subtle. Like I may think that when you say, hey, Maureen, what you doing for dinner tonight? You're just making casual conversation. And so I may say, or you may say, oh, I don't know, I'm going out with my husband. Not really turning toward me. I just missed it, right? So those are the 3 ways we can respond to bids. And as friends, we don't even think about that we as individuals, as friends, we're making bids all the time. I went to see a great movie last night. That's a bid. That's a bid for you to ask me, really, which one did you go to? Turning away from it would be, oh, I did too. I went to see blah, blah, blah. Whoa, about my movie. So we miss the opportunities that are there for us to connect. And as human beings, at our core level, in our primary relationships and our friendships, we want and need to connect. That's who we are as fundamental attachment beings. And so we create these bids as a way of saying, I want to connect. And sometimes, Maria, it's interesting. Sometimes we're not even aware we're making a bid.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like I may come home and with Craig and say, I'm home. I'm not even aware it's a bid until he turns against it. And he may say, you know what, I'm really, really busy. I just need time. Okay. It's turning against it because it's the way he's saying it.
Right.
If he were to turn toward me and say, honey, I'm so happy you're home. And you know what? I'm kind of busy now. Can we spend some time in half an hour when I'm through with this project? Totally took care of me. Is turning toward.
Yep.
Right? So, and I wasn't even aware I made a bid, but it was a bid. When he turns against it, I know it was a bid because I could feel the turning away.
Mm.
So bids are really, really powerful. And so the message I would say to your women entrepreneurs who tried that there is where am I making bids and where am I responding to bids? If you want to create a healthy relationship, you want to respond and turn toward more bids than you miss or turn away from. We're not perfect human beings. We're going to miss them. We're going to turn away from them. But when we know what a bid is, and we know that fundamentally the people in our tribe want to connect, and when they make the attempts to reach out and connect with us, it says, I care about you. I want to connect. And so knowing that, and that we come from being attached human beings, we're more sensitive to it.
Mm.
So we would say, just pay attention.
Yeah.
And try and respond more by turning toward than missing or turning against.
Yeah. And I would just add the nonverbal. Look for the nonverbal cues because they speak very, very loud. And, somebody who's, for example, say, how are you to them? And there's a little bit of a sad look there. Pick up on that cue.
Yeah.
What's going on? Tell me, So often Debbie and I were talking earlier about how are you as a greeting. It doesn't really mean how are you anymore. It just means hello. I'm saying hi. So when you ask how are you, maybe it's okay to actually connect with that person. And if they say, well, I've been having a hard week. Yeah, tell me what's going on. Versus, oh, really? And then you go on to the next.
I've been
thing.
having a hard week too.
You think you got problems?
That was
And then, is there more?
Is there more?
Is there more?
Love that.
Exactly. See, you're learning all these skills so quickly,
Beautiful.
Marie. So bids are really important. Is there more on bids? Or are we done
I
with
think
bids?
that's good.
Okay.
There's a lot more, but that's enough for now.
Okay, moving on. So that's the second thing we wanted to share. The third thing is keeping promises. Any time that I say to you, I'm going to do something, whether it's I'm going to get a phone number to you, or I'm going to give you a connection, or I'm going to meet you for lunch at 12, that's a promise. And oftentimes it seems to be that we can be lax in our promises. And I know some people are just notoriously late, but when you show up at 12:15 and you said that you were going to show up at 12 for lunch, you've broken a promise. And promises are so important because we build our life around that connection. So if I say I'm going to meet you at 12 and I rushed out of the house to be there at 12 and you come up at 12:15, and we all know this is a common breakdown in relationships. It's really disrespectful because there's 15 minutes worth of work I could have gotten done, and somehow you think that's not as important as what you did. And so I like to say keep your promises because, again, anytime you say anything, it essentially is a promise. And a lot of times promises have to be changed. But as a friend, what we do is we're respectful of the other person and we say, you know what, I promised you that number today before noon. I said I would get it to you, but I'm caught up on a call. Is it okay if I get it to you by the end of the day? And that follow-up and that changing the promise is totally totally okay. And it just says, you matter, I respect you, and I'm taking care of you. I've got your back.
And just to add, if I may.
Is there more?
Just to add, there's trust. This is about building trust in the relationship. And I think keeping promises is all about trust. It's about reliability. It's about accountability. And I think those things are what are the building blocks of a solid, good, strong friendship.
Yeah. And here's another promise that oftentimes goes unbroken. So let's say a woman comes to me, one of my friends, and she says, "Do you know, I just heard about Sally and
Mm.
Sally's doing blah, blah, blah. Don't mention I said anything." It's basically gossip. And we tend to gossip. I think we convince ourselves it's for good purposes so that you have information that maybe you need to
Or it's a
know.
way for us to connect.
A
So
lot
we
of
think
times, a lot of times it's a way to connect. If I have information, it's almost power.
Mhm.
And so, bottom line is if somebody says, don't tell anybody, like, don't. Not even to your very, 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 very best friend.
But I also want to share that kind of conversation, I think, is gossip. And I don't think I think it's I don't want to say don't do it, but it's a lower level vibration when you're sharing gossip with somebody.
Right. Yeah. No,
So-
no, no. I'm talking about like if I said something about me to somebody
Oh,
else.
okay. I see. I thought you
I
were
said,
saying,
just, I appreciate that stays between the two. It's
gotcha.
mine.
I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about another person.
No,
like a
no,
third
no,
party.
no.
Yeah.
So keep promises. It's
Keep
essential to build loyalty. And we all know the friends that share a lot of information they shouldn't be sharing. And we also know that those are the people that are going to be sharing information about us. And so we don't want to fall into the trap of being on the same level with them doing that because we're going to be on the backside of that and it's not pretty.